Hey everybody, this is Devin, the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler and the author of the upcoming 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. I'm coming to you today a little bit early. It's Valentine's Day. Notice the red couch for love, I'm assuming. So I have some plans with my wife today, so I wanted to kind of make sure that I got out and got you guys a podcast and a new tip. In case you're wondering, every day I'm going to be bringing you new tips to writing better, getting your projects done, how to do better in travel writing, short form, long form. We're going to cover everything. We're going to be doing interviews probably in the next week or so. And we're just going to have fun. And to be quite honest with you, I get a lot out of it as well because it keeps my brain thinking about writing so I can finish the kinds of things that I need to do with my own. So anyway, welcome. If you're new here, we do this every day. Usually I shoot for around 1 o'clock. That's the goal. But be that as it may, there is sort of a number one secret to getting your stuff done. But first, I had gotten actually a personal note from a friend who saw the podcast yesterday and had mentioned that they wanted to hear a little bit from the page that I was referring to as maybe one of my more favorite openings of any book. So of course that puts on the line that, by the way, if you have a favorite book, let us know what it is, a favorite page, a great writing tip, a question. This is a great way to do it. So I think it's the other side. There you go. So if you write down in that little corner box, whether we are live or not, just simply write it down. And we would love, love, love to hear from you. Either I will answer the question or I might even do like a separate podcast for it. So we'll have fun with that. We can discuss, we can debate, because none of this is hard and fast science. I think as writers, we're all doing the best that we can. But this number one tip is the thing that has absolutely afforded me to get published numerous times and finish the articles that I intended. So before we get to that, this comes from Haroon and the Sea of Stories. A lot of people have given him flack, critics, about why he would write when he had just gotten a fatwa. We're talking about Salman Rushdie, by the way. Once he had written satanic verses and there was a fatwa against him, he had written this as a response about being silenced. So anyway, it's a children's book. He got some flack from it. I think it's a great book. I think it's a lot of fun, and there's some deeper meaning stuff to it. So anyway, I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs because I kind of love it. There was once in the country of Olive Bay a sad city, the saddest of cities, a city so ruinously sad that it had forgotten its name. It stood by a mournful sea full of glum fish, which were so miserable to eat that they made the people belch with melancholy, even though the skies were blue. In the north of the sad city stood a mighty factory in which, so I'm told, sadness was actually manufactured, packaged, and sent all over the world, which never seemed to get enough of it. Black smoke poured out of the chimneys of the sadness factories and hung over the city like bad news. Anyway, it's a children's book. It's a lot of fun. And actually, Salman Rushdie is one of those guys. I'm not going to talk about him too much. Salman Rushdie is one of those guys that whether you love him or hate him, he is absolutely an interesting character. And I think nobody writes sentences as well as he. So anyway, that said, let's get to the number one secret, and this is the thing that has helped me beyond anything else that I've ever done, and it's a magic word, and it's called accountability. Accountability is, I don't know if it's a secret, it's certainly not a secret for me. What I did when I first started writing my book about my father, I realized very early on that I probably was not going to be able to do it alone. And so we'll talk about this more in upcoming weeks, but I started a writer's group in my living room every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, and the only requirement is that writers needed to show up, bring some pages, and bring some snack to share. And so what that meant is that by every Thursday at 7 o'clock, I had to finish something new, whether I was editing a chapter, whether I was writing something new, regardless of what it was, I had to keep churning out material every single week. Because to be quite frank with you, I would have embarrassed to be hosting this event at my house and not have anything prepared. And so what that meant is I was getting a fresh pair of ears, people who weren't necessarily emotionally invested in the outcome of my writing. Like I could write a sentence and be emotionally tied to it, and they might be the first people to say, yeah, everything was great, but that sentence was terrible, or it didn't make sense. I will say, just as a sneak peek, that when you put together a writers group, make sure that you have something in common. It doesn't necessarily have to be a purely fiction group or nonfiction or poetry, but you should have some sort of comfort level, because the truth of the matter is, as I said a minute ago, if you have some sort of an emotional connection to your writing, you may not be willing to change it. And more importantly, if somebody criticizes that writing in a way that is going to upset you or perhaps be a detriment to your writing, that's why it's important to A, have ground rules, and B, have sort of a group of people that you feel confident with, that if they were to say something negative about your writing, which honestly, if you're in any kind of a writer's group, you want to hear negative feedback. But you want to make sure that you're in an emotional place that you can listen to the feedback, understand that the criticism, for the most part, is going to be met with love. These are people that we're all struggling towards that same direction. So accountability, if nothing else, it's kind of like making sure that there is a person who is aware of your project. So if you don't want to do let's say if you're writing your great master work, you don't necessarily want to meet, once a week or once a month or whatever your justification is. Let as many human beings know that you're writing a book. And by the way, it's sort of a trap. Like when I started telling people I was writing a book about my father, one of the things that people did was they started asking me about it. And it was, to some degree, a little bit traumatic, because I wanted to, like, I told people, and then I wanted to hide from that reality. Like, I didn't want anybody to know, and it became a little bit weird and awkward. That was totally 100% all on me. So what I really wanted was, if I told you I was writing a book, then good, bad, or indifferent, you might be coming back at me and say, hey, how's that book coming along? And then I can give you an update. But I can only give you an update if I then was sort of like aware of the fact that I kept throwing it out there into the world. And that's probably the other thing as well, is there's sort of like maybe some mystical quality going on there, that the act of putting together a writer's group, the act of telling other people, throwing it out into the universe, that you're taking on this major undertaking. And this is true of a short story. This is true of an article, because, and I know this to be an absolute fact after 13 years of editing in the No Traveler, is that I still get probably, 10 people a month who are like, I want to write for you. How do I write for you? Okay, well, read the submission guidelines and do what I tell you to do, which is like just a few basic rules. And then these people would write back, oh, I can't wait to write. I can't wait to do this. And then I never hear from them ever again. And that's kind of sad, because I believe in the reality is that most people have this thing that they're itching to say, and then little by little they come up with justifications of why they don't want to move forward with their writing. Like they want to travel the world for free. They want to write travel articles. They want to promote travel. They want to do all kinds of fun things. And when we talk about a travel article, the articles on my site start at 500 words. That's a page. So that means it's really short. That means you don't have to put in, like, I know people who churn out 500 words, in 20 minutes. And there's also people like Stephen King and Nora Roberts and lots of other writers who have this magical ability to walk into their room, they sit down at the computer, and I'm sure they have rituals to make this all happen, but they sit down and they churn out books. They have this ability to just sit down and write and write and write. Mark Twain did it. Obviously Shakespeare did it. There's tons and tons of writers who have that ability, but most of us, like me, for example, I don't have the ability to just sit down and churn out writing. I find it really difficult. So I have to come up with little tips and tricks to make sure that even though if I'm not feeling that inspirational moment, that I'm going to sit and write the stuff that I need to do. So the number one tip is to have accountability for what it is that you are accomplishing. So if you have a book in mind and you want to write it in a year or in 6 months, and you know that you need, I don't know, let's say somewhere between 60 and 80,000 words, which is kind of, 200, 220 pages, something like that. You want to make sure that you can divide up, instead of going, oh my God, how am I going to write this 80,000 word thing? It can be much more like, well, maybe 80,000 words, but that becomes over 10 months, that's 8,000 words. And 8,000 words is, what is that, 12, 13 pages? That's actually doable. And even if that sounds threatening, you can break that down into what is that a day, or what is that a week? Then it becomes 2,000 words a week, which is kind of nothing. That's, the average length of an article you would see in some throwaway magazine. The National Enquirer has articles that are all, far less than 2,000 words. So my point is that keep throwing it out there. If you need to beef it up, then join a writer's group or get out of your house. That's the other way I do it, is that I will go into a library and sit and write. But more importantly than anything else is that, that phrase, it takes a village. So take your village and surround your book with those people. So when they ask you how it is, you can say, oh, I did it. I forced myself to do it. I know I'm going to see Larry today, and Larry's going to ask about my book. I better write something right now, make it happen. So I promise you, if you are a new writer, this may seem scary and challenging, but I know that you have a story in you, so just keep on writing as often as possible. How long? Yeah, no, okay, so I think we've talked long enough for today, and we're going to talk about some more stuff tomorrow. Maybe we will talk about writers groups, kind of dive into the thick of that for those who want to get started that way. And by the way, I am working on a new project, and I have, I restarted my writers group where we meet in my living room and we have snacks and we do the do. So if you are a writer, you're interested in writing, you want to tell stories, you want to write letters to your Aunt Martha better, keep checking in with us every single day. Like I said, I shoot for around 1 o'clock, but you can always like us on devingalaudet.com. I think it's that direction. And hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. And I'm just going to keep doing this day after day. And together we are going to become better writers. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk to you guys soon.